Electric cars can be pretty cool. Plenty of punch, futuristic, and you never have to go to a service station again. It's that last point that's got a lot of people pretty interested in electric motoring.
But while the idea of never paying for fuel again is tempting, there is a sting in the tail.
Well, in the electricity bill to be precise.
Sure, they only cost a few dollars to charge each night, but by the time your bill arrives 3 months later, it can lead to some seriously wide eyes.
But what if you could drive for nix? Nothing. Nada. Well, that's my challenge today. I've been living with a BMW i3 now for a few months, and I've figured out that the whole electric car community are a pretty passionate bunch.
There are apps and chat rooms, all of which make it a bit easier to figure out where you can get your next charge.
One thing with most of the charging stations, and there aren't that many of them, but most of them are in fact free to use, so may as well take advantage of it, eh? First stop, a pretty obvious one. And I've picked just the day for it here, so hopefully we won't get any zaps from all this rain.
No surprises that some BMW dealers have charging stations, and they're open to all electric car drivers. And also no surprises that they're pretty happy to see my i3.
As I said, an obvious one. BMW dealership, you've got a full charge point charge station, so theoretically you don't need an i3. You can roll up, plug your car in, provided there's a spot free. And while you're here, I guess, have a look at the new wares they've got inside. But next step is to try and get another one.
And BMW isn't the only one offering free charges.
Some other car dealers selling electric cars also have charging stations, although not all are happy for just anyone to drop in. While electric cars are pretty much agreed on a standardised plug, it's called the J1772 connector, or the J series, Tesla does things its own way. It's to do with the supercharger network, which is free for owners of the most expensive electric car on the market, but only for them.
But there's only so long you can live in car dealerships. Time to go and find somewhere a little more exciting.
And living with an electric car, there are some unexpected bonuses.
So how good's this? My own dedicated parking spot, some free electricity thrown in. So you're finding shopping centres and other public places trying to do the right thing and doing this stuff more often. Not a bad way to convince me to come here.
Except that to get that free charge, you've got to stop, usually for at least half an hour, often longer.
So the next trick's what to do with all that time while the car's charging. Well, shopping centres, obviously it's a no-brainer. I'll grab a coffee to start with. And the best bit is these connected cars, I can keep an eye on how it's charging, all from my phone, which is a bonus. And once I get a bit more juice into that, I'll have to find the next place to go. That's also pretty easy.
Using those apps, you can locate the nearest charging points.
And council's getting in on the act too. You're finding here 2 electric vehicle parking only signs, so pretty good, although there's something I didn't know. The 1980s Nissan Navara is actually electric powered. Work that out. And that's actually one of the challenges with all this stuff is people, I guess, ignoring the signs. It's happened to me in a few parking stations over the last few weeks where you roll up and the dedicated spot has anything but an electric car in there. But here we go, we'll give this one a crack. But not all plugs are created equal. I've had to bring along the car's own power cord. So standard power point on that side and that J1772 one on this side. Plug her in and off we go. Now, one of the challenges with this is, unlike those dedicated chargers with the big plugs, this one's going to take a lot longer to charge. It hasn't got as much power coming into it, so I better find something to do.
And one thing with a lot of these charging stations is that they're often not in locations you'd want to spend a lot of time.
It's pretty cool that you can go around just charging up from other people and from companies and councils and whatever else. It's sort of like legal stealing in a way. Makes you want to drive round and around.
One thing with most of the charging stations around town is they're typically not in tourist areas and generally not in places that you'd want to spend too much time, but that is exactly where I'd love to see a charging station, right in the heart of the beach. Perfect, with my own personal parking spot, of course.
But there could be one saviour. See, there's a few apps kicking around that'll help me out here. One of them, which I found, called PlugShare, it not only lists the public charging stations, but I can also find people's houses. So someone right near here called Nige, apparently, who has a 10 amp wall outlet. So let's go and see Nige. people?
Well, I've got 2 electric vehicles myself, and so, you know, with the lack of charging infrastructure in Australia, it dawned on me that for a lot of people they can use a standard outlet. So I thought, why not, you know, make mine available, and that means that people are out and about like you today can pick up the phone, ring me, come get a top up. I do the same thing, and you know, we've got a map now with more than 50 homes, businesses and companies scattered around the east coast. In fact, right out in the centre of Australia we've got 2, so we can charge you in Alice Springs. So, you know, it's all about access to a bit of power when you need it, extends your range, makes life comfortable.
It's certainly great to see people helping like that, and it makes life in an EV a tiny bit easier. So, is it possible to live for free in an electric car? Well, mostly yes, although it does take some planning, enough to potentially turn some people off. And it would help to have solar on your house to keep those electricity bills down. But either way, it's still a lot cheaper than paying for fuel.